When a ship full of goods leaves an Indian port, or a plane with imports lands, there's this invisible hand guiding it all. But who is that? Well, it turns out there's one single agency that writes the entire rulebook for India's global trade. Today, we're going to unpack one of the most powerful, yet kind of under-the-radar players in India's economy, the Directorate General of Foreign Trade. You'll hear it called the DGFT. Okay, so I know what you're thinking. This looks like a page ripped straight out of a super dry textbook, right? But trust me, this is actually the blueprint. This is the master plan for how India does business with the rest of the world. It lays out the core jobs of the DGFT, and we're about to dive into exactly why this one agency is so critical for every single thing that comes into or goes out of the country. So, here's our game plan for today. First up, we'll meet India's trade gatekeeper. Then, we'll get into the core rulebook that every trader needs to know. After that, we'll check out the actual tools they give businesses to work with. And finally, this is the really cool part, we'll see how they're actively supercharging India's exports. All right, first things first, let's get right into the what and the why of the DGFT. So the easiest way to wrap your head around this is to think of the DGFT as the co-pilot for India's entire foreign trade operation. Seriously, picture a giant plane called Team India Inc. The DGFT isn't just in the cockpit checking the rulebook. They're also pushing the throttle, trying to make the plane fly faster and farther. They're both a regulator and a facilitator, which is a really important distinction.
So what does this co-pilot actually do all day? Well, it boils down to four main jobs. First, they literally write the playbook for the country's trade. That's the foreign trade policy. Second, they hand out the essential ID card every trader needs, called an IEC. Third, they're the ones who say yes or no to restricted goods by granting licenses. And maybe, most importantly, they're the architects behind the schemes that give Indian exports a real fighting chance on the world stage.
Okay, let's talk about the rulebook itself. If you're a business in India and you want to play in the global market, these are the things you just have to know. They're totally non-negotiable. First up, we have the Importer-Exporter Code, or IEC. The best analogy? It's literally your passport for doing business internationally. No code, no trade. Simple as that. You can't import or export a single thing without it. It is step one, the absolute starting point. And here's where things got a whole lot easier. You see, it used to be this whole separate, kind of complicated process to get a special 10-digit IEC. But now, and this is a big deal, your business's PAN number, the permanent account number, that is your IEC now. No separate application. This was an absolute game changer, making it so much easier for smaller companies to jump into global trade. Now, the other huge piece of this rulebook is the Foreign Trade Policy, the FTP. This is basically the DGFT's master strategy document. They update it every 5 years or so, and it lays out everything, from the basic rules of the road to the very specific incentives designed to help certain industries grow. If you're in the import-export game, this is your Bible. Okay, so we've covered the rules, but what about the how? Let's get practical. What actual tools does the DGFT put in the hands of businesses to help them navigate all this? All right, one of the most important tools in the box is something called the eBRC. I know, it sounds super technical, but all it really is digital proof. It's the official confirmation from your bank saying, yep, the exporter got paid by the person overseas. And this little piece of digital paper is absolutely crucial. You need it to claim a lot of the awesome benefits and incentives we're about to get into. And the DGFT has a whole toolkit. For example, there's the Advanced Authorization Scheme. This is huge. It lets you bring in raw materials without paying any import duties, with the catch that you have to use those materials to make something you're going to export. That's a direct shot in the arm for your bottom line. They also run the digital system for certificates of origin. That's the document that proves your goods are from India, which is key for getting benefits from free trade deals. And they even step in to solve fights, handling complaints to make sure Indian exporters maintain a good name out there. All right, and this brings us to what I think is the most exciting part. This is where the DGFT shifts from being a referee to being a coach. We're talking about how they actively promote exports. It's all about giving Indian companies a real competitive advantage. So these incentives really come in two main flavors. On one hand, you have duty exemption schemes. Think of this as getting to skip the tax line altogether. You import what you need for your exports without paying customs duty up front. Then you have duty remission schemes. With these, you pay the duties first, but then you get that money back, like a refund or a drawback, once you've shipped your goods out. So either you avoid the cost from the start or you get it back later. So let's zoom in on one of the most powerful tools in that exemption toolkit, the EPGC scheme. This one is a biggie. It lets an exporter import capital goods. We're talking the big stuff like machinery, factory equipment, high-tech gear at zero customs duty. The whole idea is to let Indian companies buy the best equipment in the world to make top-quality products without getting hit by a massive tax bill right at the start.
But, and this is really important, it's not a free lunch. Nothing ever is, right? The government is giving you this huge tax break to get the best machinery. In return, you've got to promise to use that new gear to bring money into the country through exports. There's a catch, and it's called an export obligation.
And this obligation is super specific. The deal is you have to export goods worth 6 times the amount of duty you saved, and you get 6 years to do it. It's a very clear quid pro quo. We help you modernize your factory, and in return, you help the country by exporting 6 times that benefit. And the EPCG scheme is just one piece of the puzzle. The DGFT gets really specific with its support. For example, special export-oriented units can now set up warehouses right near the ports to speed things up. The gems and jewelry industry has its own special deals for getting duty-free materials. They even have subsidies to help with freight costs for certain products. It shows you how they're not using a one-size-fits-all approach. So when you pull it all together, you can see the DGFT is playing this incredible balancing act. On one side, it's the strict referee with a whistle, making sure everyone follows the foreign trade policy. But on the other, it's the team's biggest cheerleader and coach, giving Team India the playbook and the tools it needs to go out there and win. And that really leaves us with one big question, right? Because this rulebook, this whole system, it can't just stand still. It's constantly changing. With global supply chain shifting and new tech popping up every day, you have to wonder, what's the next big move? What's the next change India needs to make to keep winning in the world of trade?